Hello, friends, and welcome to the Professional Procrastinator. I'm your host, Rohila, and if you're tuning in, chances are you're ready to turn the page on your procrastination habits. Each episode is a step towards action. No guilt, just positive energy and better strategies. Let's jump in and make procrastination a thing of the past. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Professional Procrastinator podcast. I'm your host, Rohila, and today is an episode that I am very much looking forward to. In my kitchen, I have a wall dedicated to quotes, and these are quotes that really make an impact for me. They are ones that I put up that just speak to me and get me thinking about different things. I don't do it for others. I don't do it to impress. It truly is meant to be as a reflection tool for myself. Oftentimes I'll go down to the kitchen and just sit there with a glass of water, just staring at the wall. And little by little, there will be certain quotes that just jump out at me. And I'll focus on one, and ultimately it helps me determine what my next action should be. One of those quotes says, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." And that got me thinking about, when is the future and what are we doing to set ourselves up for that? Now, your future is created by what you do today. Again, your future is created by what you do today. And what's interesting about that is when we think about the future, when does the future start? And if I were to ask you that, how would you answer it? Is the future this next second? Is it tomorrow? Is it a week from now? What really is the correct measurement of the future? The thing is, it's easy for us to know about the past in terms of a timeline. We can easily look back and say a year ago I was doing this, or 5 years ago I was doing this, or even last week I was doing this. But in the future, because we don't know what to expect, our thinking and how we think about the future in terms of timelines is going to determine the amount of success that we have. And I'll talk about that in a second. But when we think about the future, we struggle in truly understanding it as a timeline. After all, is there a real difference between 1 year from now and 5 years from now? Because if you think about it, if you close your eyes, unless you're driving, but if you close your eyes and think about the future, if I said to you, what does your life look like in 1 year and what does it look like in 5 years? You're going to struggle. And there's a reason for that. And it has to do with the way that average people think and the way successful people think. If you ask most average people what their plans are for the future, they can tell you within a week or a month in advance at the most. They'll have a fairly good idea of what to do there. But if you ask successful people, they think years in advance. And what's interesting is your timeline, whether it's a week from now, a month from now, or even years from now, your timeline determines the amount of effort that you're willing to invest in that future. So if you are only thinking about life in terms of a week from now or a month from now, you're not going to truly build a solid foundation to achieve drastic goals and a redefined life, because you're just not seeing that far. But if you're successful, you are thinking that far into the future. You're thinking about what's going to happen next year, next 5 years, next 10 years from now, and you're going to start laying the groundwork for that. One of my all-time favorite personal development books is called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And what I love about this book is it immediately made an impact in my life, because what he talks about is exactly what we just talked about, setting your life for the future. And what he talks about is breaking that down. So if you have a goal that you want to accomplish in the next 10 years, well, where do you need to be in 5 years? Where do you need to be in 1 year, in 1 month? And what he does is he helps you understand what is the one thing that you can do today to get yourself situated for that long-term goal. And it's a book that I read. I try to read it at least once a year, Because what happens is in our daily lives, we reduce our thinking to what's going on today and next week. Again, that's just how our default behavior is. So if you want to be successful and you want to start thinking years in advance, you have to understand that now is the time to start laying out that groundwork. We always think the future is starting tomorrow, and we set our goals by that as well. How many of you have said things like, someday I want to, or I've always wanted to, or one day I will, or starting tomorrow, or it's on my list? Now, I invite you to understand that when you start a sentence that way, and you're listing off the things that you hopefully, maybe one day, if only, will do, the thing is, this is really a list of things that you will never do in your life. So think about all the things that you want to do. And if you say, someday I want that dream vacation, someday I want that car, someday I want to write a book, someday I want to start a podcast, someday I want to do this, that's really a list of things that you will never do in your life. How does that make you feel? It should make you feel sad, angry, frustrated, upset. Because how is this a list that you've got in the back of your mind, but knowing that you'll never accomplish it? Well, the reason why you're never going to accomplish it is because of the phrasing itself. Someday I want to. One day I will. It's on my list starting tomorrow. When you say things like that, what you're doing is you're limiting the scope of your subconscious's viewpoint of the future to what's going on next week or next month. You have to look past that. In the book that I was talking about earlier, The One Thing, helps you understand that. Now, what you do today is truly going to impact who you are in the future. A great way of thinking about this is, what is your current reality? How are things right now? Is this really the life that you dreamt of as a kid? Now, I talk about this in the book that I wrote, I'll Do It Tomorrow, Ends Today. And I talk about that. Why is it when we're kids, we have such amazing goals? Everyone wants to be an astronaut or a ballerina or a scientist or an athlete. And how many of us truly accomplish that? Where do things take a turn? And they take a turn by, one, external influences. I recognize that. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I love dinosaurs even to today. And even thinking right now about myself lying in dirt under the hot sun for 12 hours a day with a little paintbrush to brush away some dirt to find a fossil thrills me. But when I shared that with my parents, they said, you don't want to sit in dirt all day long and it's hot and sweaty, and, why don't you do something else related to computers or something like that? And that's essentially the path that I ended up going down. Even right now, just the thought of discovering a fossil or just being surrounded by other people where we're talking about dinosaurs all day is so thrilling and exciting to me. So why did I venture away? First off, like we talked about, external factors do play a role in determining your future. The other thing is we start settling and we start evaluating what is more worth it when it comes to our gain versus the amount of effort that we have to put in. Could I still become a paleontologist? Yes, absolutely. But the further and further away I get from being a child, it becomes more difficult. You need a greater level of education. You need to go back to school. You need to drastically change your way of living. There's a lot of things that happen. So the further away you are from your childhood, when you were able to create these steps, the more difficult it's going to be. But if you went back to yourself as a kid and said, in the future, you're going to be doing this, and you outline exactly what your current reality is, would you be disappointed with yourself? The thing is, what you have to do is you have to shift your focus to what you can do today to create that future that you want. And it starts by making small, noticeable adjustments in your daily routine. Again, you have to shift your focus to what you can do today to create your future, and you do that by making small and noticeable adjustments in your daily routine. For example, one of the things that I did was I found myself drinking a lot of soda throughout the day. And so, again, small noticeable changes. I started keeping soda in the pantry. So if I do want a soda, I have to now go out of my way to make sure that it's cold. I have to get a glass, I have to put ice in it, I have to pour it into there. It's a lot more difficult than just having a cold soda in the fridge. So that's one way that you can make a difference, is by making bad habits harder. But you can also make good habits easier. I started keeping a glass of water in the fridge. So now if I'm thirsty, I don't want to drink a warm soda or have to go through the hassle of making that warm soda cold. But here is a cold glass of water right in front of me. So what am I more likely going to reach for? That cold glass of water. The more you do to make the small adjustments in your daily routine, compounded, they will make a difference for you. But it starts by changing what you do today with the anticipation of creating yourself for the future that you want. Don't just live life day to day exactly the way that you've been doing it, because you're going to have the exact same results that you have right now. You have to shift your definition of the future into years. If you only think about the future as in next week or next month or even next year, you're not going to lay the solid foundation that you need in order to truly have a blessed, successful life. Do what successful people do and start shifting your timelines into years. Where are you going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because you can get started right now in laying the foundation for that. Again, that's what this episode has been about, is understanding that what you do today is really what's going to make an impact in your future and not what you do tomorrow. So to sum it up, today we explored how tomorrow really starts today. Don't just think about next week or next month, but rather next year. The longer you think about the future, the more groundwork you're willing to lay and invest in the desired results on what you want to accomplish in life. It starts by making small, noticeable changes. There are plenty of tips like this in my book. If you look up on Amazon, I'll do it tomorrow. It'll be the first result that you'll see. Again, thank you for spending your time with me. Hopefully it wasn't just another form of procrastination. I'm Rohit Rohila. Remember that sometimes later becomes never. So do it now. You deserve it.